Check, 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 check. It's working. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to let you know we're just going to have a slight delay. We have two special guests, and we're just waiting for their arrival. So we're at about 6:31, 32. So we'll give about 5 minutes for our guests to make it here. Sure.
Your microphone on. SCM Nasiea Iqueneot Iquanas E Lamnama. Respected guests, good evening. It's good for all of you to be here. It's good to see you tonight. My name is Brian Carruthers. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for the Cowichan Valley Regional District, and it's my honor to open this inaugural meeting of the CVRD Board on the lands of the Cowichan tribes and the Coast Salish people. It was my privilege to welcome you tonight in Ho'okuminam language. Unfortunately, we were hoping to have our language teacher, Mina Williams, who's been with us for the past year, was unable to attend to provide a blessing to the board, and so I pass on her regrets. So I'm simply here to welcome everyone tonight to the inaugural meeting, and I see we have a lot of interest. Thank you everyone for coming. And I am going to turn the proceedings over to Joe Barry. Joe is our corporate officer, and he's going to do the formalities of swearing in our new board and the rest of the proceedings tonight.
Thank you, Brian.
Joe.
It's my pleasure to once again be here to administer the oaths to the newly elected and newly appointed directors. This is my 5th swearing in ceremony, so if you do the math, every 3 years, the last one was 4, I've been here a while. So it's a pleasure to do it, and of course some familiar faces and some new faces. But what I want to let everybody know, especially those of you in the audience who may not know these people and those watching on streaming video, before I swear somebody in or administer the oath, I want to introduce them to you, because we had elections in the rural areas and obviously in the municipalities. So I'm going to start with our electoral area directors. At this end, from Mill Bay, Malahat, Blaze Salmon. Sierra Acton from Area B, Shawnigan Lake. Mike Wilson from Cobble Hill. Lori Yanni Donardo from Cowichan Bay. Allison Nicholson from Cowichan Station, Satlam, Glenora, and a number of other communities. Ian Morrison from Cowichan Lake South, Scotts Falls. Lynn Smith from Saltaire, Gulf Islands. Mary Marcotte from North Oyster Diamond. And Klaus Kuhn from Yubo, Mead Creek. Going down this side, Michelle Staples from the city of Duncan. Aaron Stone from the town of Ladysmith. Tim McGonigal from the town of Lake Cowichan. Al Sebring, municipality of North Cowichan. Kate Marsh, North Cowichan, and Rob Douglas from North Cowichan. And for those of you who are wondering how the evening's going to roll out, we actually have 2 items of business tonight. The agenda for this evening is I will administer the oaths. Once they are officially directors, we will then go into the election of the chair and vice chair for the first year of the 4-year term. So regarding the oath of office, you may wonder why I've set up the room. There's actually 3 oaths that we'll be going through tonight, one for separate groups of people. Down this side are all your electoral area directors. They were all elected. There's a slightly different version of the oath for them. All the directors on this side were appointed by their councils. So there's a slightly different oath that way. And then what I'm going to do, I believe we have every alternate director in attendance. So I'm going to ask the alternates, do the table here, to come up and stand in front of your representative. So the Ladysmith alternate will stand in front of Mayor Stone, etc., around the table, and then we'll do the alternates as well. And then they're sworn in, and they can attend any time the regular director is unable to make the meeting. The oath of office, we'll start off with the electoral area directors. So I'll ask the electoral area directors to stand. I'm going to read the oath to them in slow passages, and then they can repeat it back, and then I'll ask you to sign at that time. I state your name. Do solemnly affirm that I am qualified to hold the office of director for the Cowichan Valley Regional to which I have been elected. I have not, by myself or any other person, knowingly contravened the Local Government Act respecting vote buying or intimidation to my election to the office. I will faithfully perform of my office and will not allow any private interest to influence my conduct in public matters. As required by the Local Government Act, I will disclose any direct or indirect pecuniary I have and will not participate in the discussion of the matter and will not vote in respect of the matter. You may sign the oaths in front of you, and you are affirming in front of me. I'll now ask the municipal directors to stand. It's a short oath because they didn't have any of that lying. None of that intimidation. So I state your name. Do solemnly affirm that I am qualified to hold the office of Director for the Cowichan Valley Regional District, to which I have been appointed. I will faithfully perform the duties of my office and will not allow any private interest to influence my conduct in public matters. As required by the Local Government Act, I will disclose any direct or indirect pecuniary interest I have in a matter and will not participate in the discussion of the matter and will not vote in respect of the matter. Please sign the forms, and you are solemnly affirming that to be true. And ladies and gentlemen, you have before you your board of directors for the next 4 years. But there will be times when they can't make a meeting. So that's why the Local Government Act has, for regional districts, alternate directors. And I believe we have all 15 here. Would the alternate directors come forward and stand in front of either the electoral area director or the municipality that appointed you? It's great to see a full house. We haven't had that many, sometimes 3 or 4 around the table. And signing the forms is going to be a little more difficult. We'll have to arrange that just after this. So your oath, I state your name. Do solemnly affirm that. I am qualified to hold the office of alternate director for the Cowichan Valley Regional to which I have been appointed. I will faithfully perform the duties of my office. And I will not allow any private interest to influence my conduct in public matters. As required by the Local Government Act, I will disclose any direct or indirect pecuniary interest I have in a matter and will not participate in the discussion of the matter and will vote in respect of. We now have some forms for you to sign. This is a little more awkward. We've got the forms on the side, and we will get them into the middle here somehow. And we'll actually ask you to turn around and face the representative because they have the people that you can sign. I'll take a few. Tom Duncan and Christine Farside. John McNeil. Joe Tatum. Christopher. Christopher. Deborah. And Tricia. Oh, Colin? Right in front of Blaze. Yeah.
You want the alternates mixed in with the...
Sure, yeah.
He's
Send
gonna
them
sign
all.
them all anyway.
And it looks like all of the alternates have now signed their oaths. So, ladies and gentlemen, your alternate directors for the next 4 years. Now, interesting on this, I introduced the others before. The alternate directors, many of them I have never met. So I'm going to ask their local representative or EA director to introduce them because they're the person who will be filling in for them. So I'll start with Rob Douglas. And we'll work down this way around the table.
Sure, I'd like to introduce my alternate, Deborah from Municipality of Inaugural.
It's my pleasure to introduce Christopher Justice from Municipality.
The third alternate from the municipality of North Cowichan is Mr. Tech Manhas.
For the town of Lake Cowichan, I would like to introduce alternate director Christine Sand.
For the town of Ladysmith, I would like to introduce Tricia Mackay.
And for the city of Duncan, I'd like to introduce Tom Beckett.
For area I would like to introduce Joe Tatum.
My turn, okay. I would like to introduce my electoral area representative here and, which area? Thank you. And Mrs. Collins. Yes. Oh, yes, so, there we go.
The alternate for Area G, Saltaire Gulf Islands, is Jack Taylor.
Good evening, alternate director for Cowichan Lake South Scotts Falls, Mr. Dave Darling.
It's my pleasure to introduce Jack McNeil as the alternate director for Cowichan Station Satellite Number. It's my pleasure to introduce Ann Balford, the alternate director for Cowichan Bay Area D.
Hi, Michelle.
It's my pleasure to introduce Don Harriet, the alternate director for Area C Cobblestone.
Now it's more difficult, isn't it?
And for Area A, Millbay Valley, I have Shane.
And thank you, everybody, for the introductions there. This is the first time that all alternates have been here on the first night. So that actually is really nice. We don't have to have the photographer come back again. So what we did, we took the photos of everybody individually, have that up on the website, because if somebody from, let's say, Area G is wondering, who's my alternate? They can look on the website and there's the photo. As well, after the rest of the evening, when we're finished, we are then going to have a shot of the board of directors right down at the end. So the alternate directors, I'll ask you to return to the audience. And then we move on to the next part of the meeting. And you'll notice this chair is empty up here. We have to elect a board chair. Under the rules regarding regional districts, board chairs are elected for 1 year, and we need to do that now. So we're going to move into the election of the board chair, and yeah, we'll do the second part in just a moment. Pursuant to the Local Government Act, we're required to elect the chair and the vice chair each year at the first meeting held in November. This evening, we're going to elect a chair and a vice chair for a 12-month term. By previous resolution of the board, the hospital board chair and the board chair are held by the same director. The same applies to the position of vice chair. The positions are elected by majority vote. What that means, from the members sitting around here, in order to become board chair, you need at least 8 votes or more. If we have multiple numbers of people running, and it turns out that we have votes less than 8, we have to keep going until we have a board chair elected with at least 8 votes. So with that in mind, I will call for nominations for board chair. Does anybody wish to nominate anybody? Mike Wilson, and I'll ask if you can turn on your microphone so those at home can hear.
Thank you, Joe. I'd like to nominate Klaus Kuhn, the area director for Area I.
Director Kuhn, do you accept?
Yes, I do.
Any other nominations for board chair? Director McGonigal.
I would like to nominate Aaron Stone.
Director Stone, do you accept?
Yes, I do.
Any other nominations? Director Acton.
I would like to nominate Ian Morrison.
Director Morrison, do you accept?
Yes, I do.
Do we have any other nominations for chair? I'll ask one more time. Any further nominations? Hearing none, I will declare the nominations closed. So what happens now, I will ask each of the nominees to address the board. And so that nobody gets a benefit. I wrote down the names, and I'm going to pull out the names as to who goes first. And that would be Director Stone. So you may address the board. Your choice.
Never been up here before, so. Thank you for the nomination, Director McGonigal. I'm excited to stand before you tonight as a candidate for chair of the board. Thank you again for nominating me, and thank you all for hearing I would tend to fulfill this role. The Cowichan is my home. The people, the places, our culture, and our communities. I have had the privilege to grow up in every corner of this amazing region. I may be the mayor of Ladysmith, but I have a deep connection to every part of the Cowichan Valley. It is with this perspective that I approach the role of board chair with great intention and motivation. In Ladysmith, we have established a reputation as a leader on Vancouver Island. We have faced challenges head-on and turned the page on many long-standing issues. We have established new benchmarks in many areas, and our new team is starting our term with a clear direction and focus. I'm extremely proud of our work, and will bring this experience to the benefit of our board and everyone in the CVRD. At the Regional District, I've served as chair of the Transit, Regional Engineering, and Regional Services Committee during the previous term. I was also a member of several committees, including Grants and Aid, Regional Recreation, and Solid Waste Management, among others. I feel I contributed well to each role. As chair, I have always worked to ensure that all points of view were able to be shared while promoting good order, fair process, and efficient decision-making. I'm absolutely dedicated to the service of every one of you, every area we represent, and every person in the Cowichan region. I have implemented a succession plan for my business that has allowed me to leave daily operations behind. I have a strong staff and council team at the town of Ladysmith that have not only supported but encouraged me to run for chair. Most thankfully and most notably, I have an extremely supportive family at home who has encouraged me to step forward with 100% commitment. I have a lot of support in this role, but I will need your support as well. As a board, we can do more to build our own capacity, to support each other and enhance our skills. Our chair, vice chair, electoral area services chair, and vice chair, committee chairs, all of us should be working to develop skills through training, collaboration, and mentorship. I want to build around this great team that we have here to be more connected, informed, and effective. The chair also sets the tone in establishing a culture among the board and in cooperation with our CAO, the entire organization. As we establish a new level of excellence around our board table, we will see it reflected throughout our entire team. We can accomplish more as a motivated and solution-oriented team. I will work with our group to find consensus where we can, compromise when we are able, and respect for the majority when we must. I believe the best policy comes when diverse voices work together to find an agreement, taking pragmatic steps forward based on good information and collaboration. It is critical for the chair to develop strong connections throughout our region. I will attend the Electoral Area Services Committee meetings and any and all events where I'm wanted or needed. I'm ready to support our electoral areas in every way possible. I understand that there are many different challenges that are unique to each area and others that are shared. I will work directly with all of you to support your priorities and assist in achieving your community goals. I'm 100% committed to being the most connected and supportive board chair for everyone in the region. The chair is also the spokesperson for the board and for the regional district. I understand and embrace that role, and I am very effective at it. Whether speaking to a challenging issue in the media or making an exciting announcement, I will deliver the board's message as clearly and effectively as possible. I will promote our communities and the Cowichan is the place to be, to live, to work, and to play, to invest, to build, and to grow, all while respecting the diverse needs and priorities that exist throughout our region. I will proudly be your voice if I'm elected to do so. A capable relationship builder, advocate, and negotiator, I've developed strong connections with senior government, business groups, and community organizations. I will use these skills and relationships to advance our capital priorities and our community interests. I will ensure that we are maximizing the value of our social, environmental, and economic initiatives within the region. I am and will be accountable to the direction of the board at all times. I will work with every one of you on your shared priorities for our region and specific initiatives within each of your communities. I will work to promote a culture of cooperation and the pursuit of excellence with our board and staff teams. I will serve the board with dedication to the role, a strong understanding of the duties, a deep respect for the responsibility, and a level of passion and commitment that will ensure our mutual success. We have a lot to do, and I believe that I'm the best candidate for chair in this first year as a new board. I hope to have your support. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
And I'll ask Director Kuhn to address the board.
Well, I must say I'm somewhat at a loss. I had a speech very well prepared, and I have to discard it because in my speech I was elaborate about clobbering John Lefferbeer for all of his failings in the 7 years that he's been the chair, and now I see he's here, so I can't do that. So anyway. It's not that. So I had to take a jab at you. Good evening, colleagues and friends. I'm putting my name forward as your chair because, as your chairman, because I feel that we need to change. At the board table, I want to encourage more communication, more discussion. Too often we have made far-reaching decisions without evaluation. I was absolutely astounded at the speed the two bylaws went through the board. It seems we spent more time debating the wording of the referendum than the wording of the actual bylaws. It is important to have open discussions and to look at issues from all sides. If need be, I would be in favor of a seminar or course to that effect. We need a properly functioning board. I'd like to say something to that. I've observed at our board that quite often a motion is put forward and seconded in a very short time. And my experience has been, by nature, people don't like to say no. So when a motion is put forward and it is seconded, it's more likely than not that the majority of the members will vote for it, because it's kind of hard to say no, and I mean we know that from our relationships or from friends. If you say no, it has a negative connotation. So I've observed that too often, and it really has started to bother me, and I wonder. Yes, according to Robert's rules, you're supposed to have a motion on the floor and second it, and then you have discussions. But I think it is up to the board to decide how we would want to function. And if there is a possibility to change that, that we have a discussion first and then evaluate the proper motion to be put forward, I think it would help immensely, and it would bring about more discussion and more alternatives than just a strict one motion and yes or no. And anyway, that's one of my thoughts. I like open communication. I'm not a friend of backroom arrangements or under-the-table dealings. That also applies to our dealings with our citizens. We have not been entirely honest in our publications or in our presentations. The public is not stupid, and we should not forget that. I am a strong believer in accountability and responsibility. As the area director, I am accountable to my citizens. And as your board chair, I will be accountable to you, and I will not shy away from that responsibility. I've been told that I come across as being too serious at times, and I've been told that several times, and I don't know exactly what to do about it, because I'm a relatively serious person, especially when it comes to financial matters. And I thought, well, maybe now and then I'll wear that Oktoberfest costume that I wore last time, and maybe it'll get some chuckles. I don't know. So anyway, I'll try to lighten up. So I definitely don't want to deprive the board members of any fun. So I'll try to lighten up. As you all know, I've been a vocal critic of the two referenda regarding the water and the affordable housing bylaws. Let me clarify something here. I'm not categorically opposed to these proposals. I just don't like the way they have been set up. I can't help it. I guess because of my financial background, I like proper control of money. I think we have an obligation to our citizens to handle their money in a responsible manner. I still don't like these bylaws, but now that the majority of the public voted in favor, and after ratification by the board, we will be concentrating on the administration, the proper control of the disbursements, and the visible outcomes. At one of our board meetings, somebody called me a climate change denier. I'm not a denier. It is obvious to anybody that the climate has changed in recent years. At that board meeting, a presentation was made, and there was a forecast presented to 2080, and I think the expected change in the climate was 3.5 degrees higher than it is now. And somebody else made a comment that BC is going to look like Northern California. I object to comments like that, because they're not rational comments, they're emotional comments. And while we do need emotions in making decisions, but if you put comments like that forward, they don't solve anything. They don't try to solve, to get to a conclusion. It's just a sensational comment, and I just don't like those comments. It's similar to the comment that was mentioned once at the board, well, without water we all die. I mean, yes, you can't deny it. Yes, it is true. Without water we all die. But is it a helpful comment? No, it isn't. I think the federal and provincial governments have taken the lead, and Bill 27 pretty well shows local governments how to proceed. We're simply following the route set by the senior governments. Rewriting our OCPs with a view to climate change and harmonization is a good thing. For the last 7 years, we've had a municipal partner as our CVRD chair. We undertook some large projects that required a lot of our attention and resources. During the same time, we neglected some of our regular work, the kind of work that the public relies on, that the public expects from us. Waiting times of over 1 month to get a planner assigned, building permits that take a year to be processed are simply unacceptable. You see, municipalities have their own engineering and planning departments, and they seem to be doing a better job than we do. For that reason, a municipal representative as chair is not going to have the same concern that we electoral areas have for the inner workings of the CVRD. The next chair for the CVRD should be an area director. I am asking for your vote to be your chairman. I feel confident that working together we can bring honest discussion and sound decision making to our board table. And something else, for me, being board chair is not a power trip. I simply want to get things done. Thank you very much.
And Director Morrison.
Good evening. Before I get started, I just want to take a brief moment to acknowledge that this meeting and this gathering is on the traditional unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, and want to just briefly stop and acknowledge Cowichan Tribe's Chief Seymour, who's sitting here to my left, and thank him and welcome him to here today. Thank you. Well, I've served the community around this table for 10 years, 12 months as your vice chair. And I just wanted to start by saying that we've had some successes and we've had some mistakes, and I've made mistakes. And I think it's important for me to acknowledge and own mistakes I've made in the past if I want to have any hope of learning from them and doing better in the future. So I just want to, after saying that, share that many of us know about the 3 pillars of sustainability. They're economic, social, and environmental. But I want to talk about what I believe are 3 pillars of leadership. They're commitment, inclusiveness, and balance. So let's talk a little bit about commitment. I think we want a board chair that's going to support and stand with each and every one of us around this table and in our communities every day of the week, every evening, and even on weekends if it's needed. I want to be that kind of chair that shows up fully prepared, ready to work, and not distracted by other priorities. I want to believe that we're going to choose a chair with the time, capacity, and the ability to adapt to the ever-evolving role of the CVRD board chair. And I just want to share a cute story about a number of years ago, and it was in the summer. And the Cowichan River was running really low. And my daughter Rhiannon and I were out at the Duncan Market. And I always carry my phone on my hip, and it rang, and I looked at the display, and it was Check 6 News. They were looking for somebody to do an interview, but the co-chairs were out of town. There was an event like FCM was on, and they worked down the list and they got to me. And I agreed, and we were meeting in 40 minutes down by the river, and my daughter took one look at me, ran her hand across my chin and said, "Dad, you can't do an interview looking like that." So off to Superstore we went, grabbed a shaving kit and some shaving foam and a towel, and into the bathroom I went, cleaned up, and went down to the Cowichan River to do the interview. Now, to this day, that shaving kit and towel sits in my grab-and-go bag in the back of my car. I'm not going to be caught unprepared. So on inclusiveness, I believe that as your chair, we should know what's important to you, what's important to your communities, and what your goals ahead are for the future. I want to be that kind of chair that's going to meet face to face, individually or as a group. Because I want to understand your goals, your ideas, to help make the lives of your residents just a little bit better. You know, we've improved communication at the CVRD over the last number of months and years. And I believe that if we work together with the fine staff that we have here, we can improve how we engage with our communities and bring our engagement to the next level. Third pillar, balance. Voters chose us to serve them this term. And curiously, in reference back to the three pillars, we elected people who are keen about social sustainability. We've elected people that are keen about economic sustainability, and yet others environmental. I believe we need to select a chair tonight that is going to embrace and encourage and support all of those voices, and not just around this table, but out in our communities. I want to be the kind of chair that will embrace the work of groups like the Cowichan Housing Association, the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance, and yes, the Cowichan Watershed Board. And I mentioned the Cowichan Watershed Board because tonight, we don't just elect a CVRD board chair, we elect a co-chair for the Cowichan Watershed Board. So it's already been mentioned about electoral area, municipal. Last term, the concept of electing an electoral area chair just was not a priority. Well, in the last 3 weeks, it's been an ever consistent theme from people talking to me who watch the CVRD. I want to be that chair that brings balance back to the role of CVRD board chair. I want to believe that given competent, qualified, enthusiastic candidates from both municipal and electoral areas, that this board, you, this time, will choose to begin to restore the balance that we've been missing for the last few years. So in closing, I just want to note, last night I was at the town of Lake Cowichan swearing in and oaths. And there was a lady sitting a couple of seats over, and she leaned into me and she said, you know, there's this old saying that when someone's words and actions don't seem to jive, trust their actions. That's the true measure of character. Well, I believe my actions speak well for themselves, and I respectfully ask for your support.
Thank you, Directors Morrison, Kuhn, and Stone. We now have, following the board's procedure bylaw, a candidate question period. This is where the directors can ask questions of the candidates. It's a maximum 30-minute question period. Each director will be allowed to ask one question of one or all of the candidates. If after all the directors have been heard and there is still time remaining, directors who have already spoken can ask a follow-up question. Do any directors have any questions for either of the three candidates or for all of the three? Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you. I have a question doing some of my research with George Cuff and looking back on some of my paperwork. And this is for all three of you. Are you capable of saying no, gently but firmly, to ensure fairness for all and to facilitate effective decision-making?
And I'll turn to Director Kuhn to answer that first.
You're asking if I can firmly say no?
Yeah, well, yeah.
To some specific issue, or?
To when those decisions come up,
Yeah.
are you able to effectively?
I think that my actions speak for themselves. I think I'm one of the few directors that quite often says no, because I don't like the way something was presented, or I have a different opinion. I have no problem saying no, and I wish some of the other directors would be able to say no more often, which would then encourage more of a discussion, because quite often something goes through just too fast. And then we look back and you wonder, well, how in the hell did we ever do that? And so anyway, that's my answer.
And Director Morrison.
Thank you, Laurie, for your question. I agree that it's a challenge when difficult issues are put forward, but I found that the experience that I've had is that if we're consistent in how we approach a meeting and how we chair and how we perform that role, and that we come to these meetings with an open mind, and we hope that everyone comes here with good intent in their heart. But there are times when emotions run high, and it's the chair's role to, yes, say no when appropriate, and yet allow and encourage voices to be expressed. And a chair's success is only going to be as good as the support that he has around the table.
And Director Stone.
Thanks, Laurie. I think that Ian reflected on it somewhat, but I think that there's two pieces here. The chair's role is to facilitate and engender good discussion around the table. It's not the chair's role, in fact, to say no to a specific issue or not. But in the role of sort of the leader of the board and the messages and priorities that are set by the board, there are going to be times when the chair will have to say no, not only internally but out in the communities. I think it's important to do that with understanding and sort of a softness, if you will, that allows people to understand why that no is coming to them and the perspective with which it comes. I also think it's the chair's responsibility when they receive those requests or those messages to bring them to the board and help facilitate a discussion around them, because it may be that that's a better and higher priority in the moment than the things that we're focusing on. So I think it's important, and I'm absolutely comfortable saying no when appropriate, but I also respect the role of board chair. I'm at the table to be a facilitator, not a decision maker, unless required. Thanks.
Thank you, directors. Any other questions from any other director? Director McGonigal.
Thank you. This is for all three candidates. Are you in favor of investigating a code of conduct for directors at this table?
And Director Kuhn.
A specific code of conduct?
Yes, sir. As provided by board input and staff.
Well, I think we should always investigate any complaints or any things that happened that went against a code of conduct that is at the board. I've heard about incidents that happened in previous board meetings, and I'm a bit disturbed by some of them. And I think we should look into the details of what happened there, because we can't possibly have something that some people call harassment or any negative behavior toward individuals. It's just not acceptable. I mean, when a group works together like we do, and we are supposed to work together, then we have to be able to confer with each other in a way that doesn't intimidate or that doesn't take away the incentive of some of the others to come up with any answers or to leave a negative mark on anybody. We cannot possibly tolerate that. It's not supposed to be done, and I would definitely investigate things like that.
And Director Stone.
Thank you, Director McGonigal. I was impressed today at North Cowichan's inaugural that part of their oath of office included a commitment to uphold the code of conduct. I've seen in different organizations, we've seen it through UBCM and some of our area associations, that they've adopted codes of conduct as well. And to this point at UBCM this year, we signed it when we were supposed to have signed it and turned it in when we arrived. It's important. We have very diverse viewpoints, personality types, and just dispositions at our table. You know, I keep a note on my fridge that talks about goal setting and things as a reminder of always coming back to the things that provide you focus. Codes of conduct can act in that way as well. If they're part of your package that you always have that to fall back on. It provides good rules of engagement, if you will, on how we can work together. And it gives a good framework on how to do collaborative decision making. Also, the process of actually establishing that code of conduct could be that first great exercise that we could do together to see what our values are and priorities are and how we function as a board. And I think it would be absolutely something I would support and a great exercise for the board to go to as they develop capacity and working together.
And Director Morrison.
Thank you. And one of the challenges of going third is a lot of the good material's already been spoken of. But short answer, yes, but just briefly, and Aaron's touched on these. UBCM has adopted one, the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities has adopted one, and it, regardless of what the Local Government Act says, absolutely we should. But I want to make just a couple of quick notes which I think are important. When a code of conduct is 4 pages long and you sign it and forget about it, how effective is that as a tool? So I think that Aaron's right. Let's do the workshop. Let's get the information. Let's see if we can agree to operate at a higher standard, because I think we should. And then how do we implement that? Well, many of you who've come to our board meetings before have seen a placemat that has our strategic priorities on it. We should have our code of conduct before us at every meeting. And I think that's something that's really worth pursuing.
Thank you, directors. Any other questions for the nominees? Ask one more. Director Nicholson.
Thanks. This is for all three, and I will say briefly, can you tell us what you consider to be excellent public service and what approaches you would take to enhance the CVRD's public service?
And we'll start with Director Stone.
Well, that's a broad one, but I'll try and keep it as tight and concise as possible. I think good public service is representing the diverse voices that exist within our region and within each individual community. I think it's very clear to me, based on the term of experience that I have, that the issues that are present in North Oyster and the concerns of the community are very different than Shawnigan and definitely very different than municipalities. I think the number one piece we need to do is be able to come and bring those voices to the table, but in a collaborative manner that allow us to get to good policy. I said in my speech that I believe diverse voices make better policy. If we take one step forward and it works for everyone rather than two, I believe that's better pragmatic decision making and forward-looking policy. It'll stick. You won't have the swing back and forth that you'll push it back. I've been through experiences in our own community where engagement has resulted in very high expectations and very supported results, very fervent, excited results from a segment of the community, but it also can alienate certain segments of the community. The kind of leadership that you need as a board, as a region, and as a chair is one that can bring forward those diverse voices and try and find that sweet spot in the middle where everyone feels like they got something moving towards their piece, but don't feel like that they were not considered at all. In the end, though, we all know that with every decision comes unintended consequences. Director Sebring used to tell me that. And you can't always make everyone happy. It's not the business to be in if we do that. But I think that the number one thing we can do is we can gauge our communities better. We can stick to the strategic vision that we have and make sure that we use the good information that's brought to us, challenge the information that staff brings us when appropriate, make sure the best information is available in front of us to make the decisions we do to move the region forward one step at a time, something that will last and serve the best of everyone in our community.
And Director Morrison.
Thank you. Excellent question. And there's a couple of parts to this. And of course, again, Aaron's used up a bunch of the good stuff. But just to a point that that was a component that was going to be towards the end of my opening remarks, because I think all of us see the comments and hear the comments about how this organization could do better. And I think that we are so fortunate for those of us that go to the area associations and UBCM and the various conferences. We get to experience and learn about the best practices and experiences of other organizations. And that's part of the reason why I try to attend every one that I can, because there's so much to learn at those. But if I've learned one thing, that if you implement something new that the community doesn't think is an issue, then you're wasting your time and you're probably wasting money. So one of the first things that I would do is, and encourage the board to adopt, is survey of our community. What services are we providing well? Because I know we provide some great services. And where are the areas of improvement? And when the community tells us where they want us to improve, everybody wins. And I think that's a path forward for us to improve our public services.
And Director Kuhn.
To relate my experiences in my relatively small area is a little bit different. I have made a point in my community to phone people out of the phone book. My goal is to phone about 20 of them and to ask them how am I doing and what would you expect from me. And it is amazing when you do that. And I'm not too sure if it works in a larger area, but it works very well in my area. These phone calls, people talk about them, and they spread. And the word gets out that this guy really cares because he phones people. And it's a very simple thing. You spend, like to do 20 phone calls, I usually do 10 calls a night, so it's 2 nights of phoning. And you get very, very good feedback because you're phoning these people with absolutely no intent of swaying them any which way. So you simply ask them, and they tell you the truth. And at times it's truth that you don't really want to hear, but many times it's good news. And the effect it has when this word gets around is that you're a good communicator and you care about people. Now, to get into the broader aspect of this, as board chair, for instance, what disturbed me in past presentations to the public, or let's say communications with the public, was that some of the ads or the brochures that we printed were aimed, and you could read it in between the lines. They were aimed to get a certain result. And I brought that forward many times. I didn't like the way it was done. Like, for instance, very simple example, do you care about water? Well, I mean, you'd have to be absolutely nuts not to care about water. Even if you have really good water available to you, you still care about it. If you take that result now as a base to another decision, where you say, well, you told us you cared about water, so now we're going to do this. This is not being true. And it annoys me to no end that something like this happens. And the public is not stupid. They read that. They can detect that. They can say, you know, man, I know what they're after. They want to do this. And I object to things like that. Why not just openly ask, what are you concerned? When it comes to water, what concerns do you have? And I'm absolutely certain there's a large percentage in the population out there that really don't have that much concern about water because they're well taken care of with water. But when you ask, well, don't you care about water? Well, yeah, you're pretty well forced to say, yes, I care about water. And then you take that as a base for a decision that everybody wonders, well, how did we get to this now? And so my base for this is simply, I care about the people and I want to be honest to them. I don't want to slant them. I don't want to make it look like, oh, you know, I need an answer from you because I know what I want. I want to do this. And we shouldn't approach the public like that. And so my aim would be, let's be honest with the public, because the public can detect if we're honest or if we're not. They're not stupid.
Thank you, directors. Any more questions? Director Smith.
This question is for all three candidates. When I've been out campaigning this season, it was interesting. Many people received taxation notices that they feel were increases that are becoming unaffordable for them. And I would like to know, what percentage will you hold our budget increases to in this next budget to ensure that the taxpayers are receiving prudent taxation?
Director Stone.
Well, you can't really do that across the board. Every electoral area has different services as the nature of the regional district requires. So it really depends on the different choices that are made through the electoral area services committees on the different services and options that they want. So that baseline really has to be established by the electoral area services committee. When it comes to general government, supplementals, things like that, again, I think it's important that we just look at, for example, the two referendums that passed quite strongly within the region as a whole and in the majority of electoral areas and all of the municipalities. Those in themselves will require a tax raise that actually percentage-wise will be different in every area within the region because, again, of the different services that everybody provides. Shawnigan, for example, has municipal level taxation. No offense, but we've had this discussion on many, many occasions where the services that are provided in a place like Shawnigan are very different than they are in Yellow Point, for example. So the taxation is very different. Any increases to general government will require a much higher percentage increase in somewhere like Area H, but any increases in services that are in Area B will result in different increases in North Oyster. So it's impossible to say one blanket percentage increase across the board. I would say, though, as a fundamental principle, we have to do better in driving better value for our taxpayers. And those are our citizens. They're not fictitious money envelopes. They're actually the people that we serve. And I think we have to have some hard discussions on how we provide value for people. Municipally, over the term, we had a serious increase the first year I was elected. Last year we had a 0.9% reduction. We worked with our staff to generate a culture of high performance and greater value. We said that we were going to make the hard decisions on the kind of maintenance we did in parks, the kind of priorities that we set forward in terms of capital projects, and making sure that every money that we spent each year or intended to spend each year was actually spent and delivered on those commitments that we made to people. So unfortunately, I don't think that it would be appropriate for any of us to give a blanket percentage because it would be impossible. But one thing I will say, the cost per 100,000 is something we need to remove from our conversations because every year our assessments go up. Last year on our regional district tax roll, it said cost per 100,000. Ladysmith went down 1%. But I can tell you our regional district taxation went up for every homeowner in Ladysmith. So we can do better to provide better value, but to provide a percentage would be inappropriate.
And Director Morrison.
Aaron, you're taking all the good stuff. And I have to agree with so much of what Aaron shared, but I'm gonna look at this a little differently in that I was out and about at a lot of the all-candidate forums. I think I attended 2 in North Cowichan, was at my neighboring electoral area in Satlam and up in Area H, and I heard a message, and it was pretty clear. If the people know that taxes pay for their services, but what I heard was keep your increases to no more than the rate of inflation. Now, as Aaron's described, that's going to be different in every electoral area, and it's going to affect all sorts of different services differently, and it'll be a tough thing to do. But I know we can direct staff to come back with their draft budget that mirrors pretty close to inflation. I know they can do that. They've done it before. The board has to give that direction. But I just want to share really quickly an interesting thing that happened in my first term. There was a referendum that passed the regional parkland acquisition, and it was a set rate. And the increases were going up a little bit one year, and everybody looked at it and they said, well, you know what, to get that number down, we're gonna not tax as much in the regional parkland acquisition this one year. Well, that was a little bit of artificial creative bookkeeping, I guess is the best way to put it, in that you don't reduce something that the public has told you to go and fund. And we heard it, and the community was right. If we're gonna tax for a service and they approve it, we should do it, but we shouldn't be using creative approaches to make that artificial number that we've talked about.
And Director Kuhn.
Yeah, it is quite true that the increases vary from area to area, from municipality to municipality. So it's very difficult to set a certain goal. But the CVRD can do it. They can set a limit for all of the CVRD. How it affects the individual areas, that is then up to the area director, and there's where the responsibility for the area director comes in. Let me make a few comments here. We've tried that. We've tried to set a ceiling for increases in a certain budget, and I remember that when I was in my first term we did that. Where the downfall usually is when budget time comes then, the individual directors have certain wish lists, and they want to push down their wish list because that's what they promised to their respective citizens, or that's what they had as an idea and they wanted to fulfill that. And that then is in direct collision with the goal that the CVRD had set. So now we're in a bind. So now the budget discussion is going on, and then somebody speaks up, well, but I want this in there, and then bit by bit the amounts increase. And it is difficult. I mean, it is doable to simply say, well, we're not going to go over, let's say, the inflation rate. It is doable. Well, all it takes is willpower. And we as individual area directors, we will have to be admitting then, maybe to our public when we made too many promises or whatever, that we can't do it. It is manageable. We can do that. It's simply a question of willpower, and that's where we kind of failed. Let me make another comment as well. It is easier, for instance, for the BC government to come up with limits on its government, because the BC government is not faced every day with public comments or with public contacts or with public complaints. They don't get that kind of thing. We in local government face the public every day. And that also has a side effect. And the side effect is that over time we kind of get worn down. So So over time, we tend to say, well, okay, we'll do this, and that then negates everything that we tried in trying to balance the budget. That offsets it then, and before you know, we are again at 4 or 5%, and we wonder how we got there. No, I must say it is doable. We just have to be tough, and maybe we'll have to take lessons or learn how to be tough. But we know we can do it. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you, directors. As per the terms of the bylaw, there's 4 minutes left. Does any director have a question for one director or a question with very short answers? Seeing no hands, no further questions, we're just about out of time anyways, we will now conduct the voting. What we have here, for those people who are not familiar with it, we have electronic tabulators, and I ask the directors, do not press any of the buttons yet. Please don't press any of the buttons yet. After they're handed out, what we will do is we'll flash up on the board the names of the directors. They'll have a letter next to it. In this case, there'll be an A choice, a B choice, and a C choice. You will then vote. You can only vote once on the tabulator. If you make the wrong choice, you have the ability, the last button you touch is the one that is counted. And then we'll show on the screen the results as soon as we know them, and we're ready to show them. But do not touch any of the buttons yet. Correct. Correct. So just a correction. We did a test run through earlier today. So let's do this first. Let's turn them on. Okay, they're all on. Okay, don't touch any button yet. If you wish to vote for Director Kuhn, you press A. Director Stone, press B. And Director Morrison, press C when I say so. What'll flash up in the top left corner for anybody in the audience and for those watching at home, we've now got this on the streaming video, you'll see a total. When we get to 15, everybody's voted. Last year actually, we were sitting there at 14. Come on, who didn't vote? So we'll know that. And we did a run through earlier today. This is very straightforward. So I'll ask that the system be turned on and started. Go ahead and vote for your choice for board chair. And remember, when we get to the tabulators, the actual total, 14. Okay, okay, there we go. We've got 15, and you've locked in your votes. So what happens now, and we'll flash the result in just a moment, if any of the 3 directors gets 8, that person will be the board chair. If not, the one with the lowest vote will drop off and we will vote again. So I asked Shannon to show us the totals. And we have, you can tell by my eyesight I have to get a little closer. So for the people watching at home, we have 6 for Director Klaus Kuhn. B is Director Stone, and C. So the totals were, there we go, 6, 4, and 5. So in that case, the person with 4 drops off. So that would be Director Stone. And we will now just reset everything, and then the directors will vote between Director Kuhn and Director Morrison. No touching of buttons yet. Okay, so if the directors wish to vote for Director Kuhn, vote A, and for Director Morrison, vote B. And again, there has to be 8, and because everybody's here, we will not have a tie. So start the system and go. And we have all 15 registered. Show us the totals. And Director Morrison is the board chair. And for those watching at home who may not be able to see the numbers, Director Morrison received 10 votes and Director Kuhn had 5. We're almost there. Now have vice chair. So I will call for nominations for vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair? I sort of see a hand reaching forward. Director Nicholson.
I nominate Sierra Acton.
Director Acton, do you accept?
I do, thank you.
Okay, so for vice chair, we have Director Acton nominated. Any other nominations for vice chair? Director Sebring.
Nominate Director Kuhn.
Director Kuhn, do you accept?
Yes, I will.
Director Kuhn. Are there any, Director Salmon?
Nominate Director Stone.
Director Stone, do you accept?
No.
No.
Thank you. Thank you, though, please.
Director McGonigal.
I'd like to nominate Director Sebring.
Director Sebring, do you accept?
I'll decline, thank you.
Thank you. So far, we have Director Acton and Director Kuhn. Any other nominations? And I don't see any hands. I'll call one more time. No other further nominations. Okay, nominations are closed. So we will have Director Acton and Director Kuhn address the board. And again, just to mix it up, add a little bit of suspense here, we will go with I forgot to take the old ones out. Yeah, we got to hear those ones again. Director Kuhn.
What?
You may address the
Oh, again?
on voting for you for vice chair.
On voting for me for vice chair. Well, now I can't lambast our former chair anymore. Well, I would be looking forward to working with Ian, because Ian and I are living in the same far end of the valley, and we have basically the same interests at heart with our areas. I think it would be a logical step, and I would enjoy that. Thank you.
And Director Acton.
Thank you. Thank you for nominating me, Director Nicholson. I would be honored to be vice chair, and I believe that in the past, the role of vice chair was just someone who didn't make it as chair. And so I would like to actually create a role out of it, and for it to be a bit of a flattening of leadership. I felt like leadership was maybe not communicating out to the board as much, so the vice chair could be someone cheerleading for that to happen, and creating more of a collaborative atmosphere and sharing going on, and also a role for mentoring and learning. Since coming here, I've been very eager to learn as much as possible, and to create a sense of team. When I joined this board a year and a half ago, and for those in the public, I was brought in the by-election, or I was elected in the by-election. So I joined a really functioning board, and it kind of fell apart. So I think maybe a vice chair could help with that, and we can add some of our values of having a safe place to talk and having fun and feeling connected. And that's, I would like to create a role that can help flatten the leadership and create like an executive leadership team. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Acton and Director Kuhn. We'll now have an opportunity for the board to ask any questions of the prospective vice chair. Are there any questions of one or both of the candidates? And I'll ask one more time, any questions? Don't see any hands. Okay, we don't have to have a candidate question period here, so we'll move on to the voting. So I'll ask in a moment to have the two names placed up. So again, in this case, once again, don't press any buttons yet. So choice A on your tabulator, Director Acton. Choice B, Director Kuhn. And we'll start the system and go ahead and vote. And we have all 15 directors in, and we will now display the results of the vote. And Director Acton receives 8 and Director Kuhn 7. So it's my pleasure then to declare Director Anderson as chair of the CVRD board and the chair of the CVRD hospital board. Director Acton is the vice chair of the board and the hospital board. And Director Morrison, you may assume the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. I strangely find myself almost speechless here. I want to just make a couple of remarks, and I've already been provided with lots of help and advice from staff as to what the next steps are. But I firstly want to, again, have everyone acknowledge and thank the candidates who put their name forward to run for chair and for vice chair, and I think we should give them a hand. Secondly, I want to make sure and thank the directors around the table today and those that took the time to meet with me over the last couple of weeks. I found their insights and their advice to be sometimes a little humbling, but incredibly helpful. And I thank those of you that met with me very much for doing so. And third, I want to really thank this amazing crowd of people that showed up today to witness an important part of democracy at the local government level. This is one of the bigger crowds that I've seen at an inaugural meeting of the Cowichan Valley Regional District, and I hold the oath that I speak, and this ceremony is a very important part of what we do, and I think that, and I hope that this board is off to a good collaborative start to this term ahead. And lastly, I just want to let the directors around the table know that some real tough and quick work begins, because I'm hoping to have an opportunity to do what I talked about, is explore what your interests and ideas are for moving forward. We've got some committees to establish and some chairs and outside nominations and positions that need to be filled, and we will be in touch sooner than later. And with that, is the next order of business to?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We will have, the next order of business is to adjourn the meeting, but just a reminder, because we have a large crowd here, for the directors, we will now take the official formal board photo. So I ask the directors to come forward when the meeting's adjourned, and then we will bring the photographer in and set up for that. So anyone who wishes to speak to the directors, if you can just hold on till we finish with the photograph. So a motion to adjourn.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Before everybody runs off, we've got snacks and beverages.
No, right here.